You're listening to the Plain Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carla Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 252 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me in the PTUK studios again this week is my co-host Matt Smith.
I told you, don't talk to me, I'm very busy. Go
Okay,
away.
So Matt's had a very busy week. He's been driving coaches, buses, he's done a few parachute jumps and stuff. He's been to Brazil and back twice, so well done, thanks for that.
Yeah, lovely.
And also joining us from his stately mansion over in Buckinghamshire, a place where we'll be travelling to tomorrow for our PTUK board meeting, it's Neville Bounds.
Hello everybody, welcome, and yes, Matt's having a slight technical meltdown at the moment, but that's not very unusual, so I think we could probably get away with it.
What do you mean, not very unusual? Hang on, I'm slightly offended.
How are things with you, Nev?
Very good, thank you. Had a very busy week at work again. Car passed its MOT yesterday, so that was a good thing. Took the cat down. Yes, took the cat down the vet. So obviously you get a bill for that, don't you?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Now the question. I do have one question to ask. Was the bill for the banana more or less than the bill for the cat?
Actually, yes. In fact, the banana was £54 and the cat was 98.
Oh, right, so there we are. You see, say them all.
There you are.
There we are. Yeah, absolutely.
God.
So that it had a nice little session in the garage then, Nev.
Yes, it's second MOT because it's 4 years old now.
And it flew through.
It did, yes, yeah. Spent a bit of money on it the last service, but that's all good to go for another year. I'm pleased to say.
Excellent. So joining us from his on-location area, it's an awesome friend and very good contributor to this show for all things grey and military. It's the amazing Armando.
Hey, thanks. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight?
We good?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, absolutely. We got a bit of a problem with your video there, Armando. So perhaps if you could just turn the video off and just we'll just run with sound audio. All right.
Yep.
Cool.
No
Leave
problem.
it with me. I'll work something else out.
Maybe take the lens cap off your camera.
No, it's me. It's me having. I'm having one. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm having one of those shows. All right, it's going to be one of those. If we get to the end of this without having to redo anything, it'll be a blooming miracle.
Hey, Matt, watch out! There's an airplane behind you.
Oh, sure. Moving on. Next.
So how are things with you, Armando? You been doing much flying lately, or are you sort of working hard somewhere?
Yeah, not a lot of flying as a pilot, but I'm here. Would you say on location? I'm on location in southern Germany right now. It's beautiful. It snowed last night. Pretty much at the southernmost part of Germany, down by the Alps. So it's the rest of this weekend should involve some skiing. But yeah, other than that, the holidays since the holiday show, a lot of podcasting. So first of all, I got married. So
As you do.
As you do.
All right. So I had to finish out the year strong. I got married on New Year's Eve. My lovely co-pilot Megan, who is probably listening right now.
Aww. Hello, Megan. Hello.
But that was in Charlotte. While I was in Charlotte, Megan and I got the chance to meet up with Steph. So Steph took us to a local brewery. Had some awesome beers that, as you guys know, that the beers in North Carolina and the microbreweries are way stronger. So after 4 of them, we were figuring out all the world's problems.
Yeah, in a bit of a state. Yeah.
Yeah, and then probably most importantly, I had a really nice lunch up in where were we? So we had
a little meet up with Armando last Sunday, wasn't it, Matt? And we went to one of our local eating establishments where we had a proper English carvery, where I think we all sampled various meats on the platter.
There was meat,
gammon,
yes,
turkey. It was definitely it was a damn good carvery. I'm guessing
you'd not been there to eat before, had you? Actually, you were pleasantly surprised.
No, it was very nice. I shall be going back.
Yeah, as I say, myself and Mother are very sort of fussy about carveries after many years of running a pub. So it's it was all about sort of trying to find somewhere nice. When you've got royalty visiting, of course, you've got to make sure
you have to take to the best
place.
place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, date and time check then. It is the 18th of January. It's Friday. It's just coming up to 7:05 in the evening. We've got loads of people in the chat room this
Spray
evening.
that again if you like.
All the usual family members in there, as always. We've got, to run through the list here, we've got loads of people in there this week. We've got Auntie Liz is joining us in the chat room this week. Captain Nick is also in the chat room. We've got Masha, she's in the chat room. Neil Landwarn, Armando is in the chat room as well. Good. We've got Yama Saku, who's in Japan. So greetings to you in Japan. We've got Richard King. Hello to you, Richard. James Candraw. Hello, James. Tony S. Graham Haley. Jonathan Warner's also joined us this week. He's obviously taking time away from being on the flight line at Fairford. And we've got, let me scroll, Richard King. Who have I missed anyone out? Mayman Micah, our blue spanner of death. He's in there this week. Jenny in Rome, our prize winner in Rome.
I think she's just visiting briefly, though.
She's visiting briefly, yeah. She's got something on this evening. Richard Adams as well is in the chat room. Pilot Pip has joined us in the chat room as well this week. And we've got a segment coming up actually later on the show from Pilot Pip. His first one of 2019. And I hope I've got Chris Griggs is also in the chat room.
Good.
Tanya W is in the chat room. My blimey, there's lots of people. Rick Bell, hello, Rick Bell is also in the chat room. I hope I haven't missed anyone out. No, I don't think I have. No, we're all there. Great, excellent. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening on this lovely, chilly, minus something or other outside Friday evening.
It is that time, yes.
It is that time of the year, yeah. We don't get white Christmases anymore. It's kind of a January thing. No. So like I said, we've got a segment from Pip coming up on later in the show. We've also got some military news this week, which has been compiled by our guest Armando this week, and he's kind of taking the military segment to whole new levels now for us, so well done to you, Armando. And that's about it. So Matt, if you are
just stall for another
minute, okay. Actually, on the note of Christmas prizes, we have just waiting on Tony Kinsley to get in contact with us at the show. We've still got your prize here, Tony, the Air Crash Investigation box set. If you could drop us an email to let us know where you want us to send that prize, we'll get that way to you straight away. We've had a picture sent in from one of the prize winners, Tony S, who won the Dam Busters book, and he sent us in a photo of him with the book. So thanks for that, Tony. And I hope you all enjoyed your prizes. So there we go. So Nev,
hello.
You said we've got some big plans for this year. So while Matt's sorting out some feeds there, so we've got some big plans
yes,
this year.
we have, and I've been had a couple of notifications in the last week or so about some things that we might want to do outside broadcast stuff and some good. Filming and some interviews. We'll tell you more about it when we've had a chat between the three of us. But there's a lot of good stuff coming up this year, and as always, it's all a bit weather dependent, of course, if we're going outside to do things. But really looking forward to it. And 2018 was a great year for lots of content. And of course, last week we played out the final episode of the Sir Richard Johns interview. That's been very well received indeed. And I sent all of them to the man himself to have a look at, and he is delighted with them also. So that's very nice indeed. So lots more to come during 2019.
And the good news is Armando is going to become quite a big part of the show, aren't you, Armando? You're going to join us and become our kind of our go-to guy for military aviation news, and you're going to kind of sort of be our eyes and ears at the air shows across in the US this year.
Yeah, well, if given the opportunity to join the PTUK team in any capacity, I don't think anybody would really pass it up. So if you guys offer it up, I'll.
There are lots of people who pass it up. Yeah. To be fair, Armando.
And on that note, actually, we've this week we've got some new P2K uniforms being produced for us, and Armando's got his very own uniform.
Okay, you can stop stalling now. I'm ready.
All right, okay. So I'm quite looking forward to that because we're getting sweatshirts this year, which is quite nice. We haven't had those before, so we're going to have sweatshirts each, which
That's
will be
exciting.
Quite nice. In royal blue, I think. They were getting so.
Well,
that's
there we
quite
are.
nice. So we are going to kick off the show and start things as we always do each week with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
I actually am, yes.
Yay! And if you're ready, Nev.
I've been ready for hours.
Yeah, I'm blaming Nev because I was going to sort this all out before we started, but he was so adamant that we started on time. But anyway, yes.
And if you're ready, Armando.
Well, I'm on European time, so I was ready an hour ago.
Oh,
Yay,
I
let's
feel
go.
terrible now.
So, kicking off this week's first news story on the AOL.com website. And I did have to look a few times to see if this story was actually true, and it is actually true because it's on many websites.
Ah, yes, it was on the BBC, actually.
And it was on the BBC, yeah.
Absolutely. And if it's on the BBC, it must be true.
Must be true.
Yeah.
The headline is "Family Forced to Sit Down on the Floor During a Flight Due to Airline Mishap." So a British family were returning home from vacation and were forced to sit on the floor during a TUI Airways flight due to what the airline claims was last-minute scheduling mishap in June. Paula Taylor of Alchester, Warwickshire, told the BBC's show Rip Off Britain that she and her family arrived 3 hours early to check in for their flight from Menorca, Spain, to Birmingham here in the UK to ensure they could all sit together. She told the show that her and her husband and their 10-year-old daughter all received boarding passes marked for rows 41, seats D, E and F. But when they boarded the aircraft, there was an empty space where their assigned seats were.
What?
They looked at each other in amusement to see what was going on here. Yeah. And the couple's young daughter was eventually given the last free seat on the flight, while Taylor and her husband were offered 2 spare flip-up chairs meant for crew members. However, once the aircraft had taken off, the couple were forced to vacate the area and sit on the floor of the aircraft so flight attendants could access items stored behind the seats. "It's hard and uncomfortable and it's just filthy," Taylor said. "Unconventional seating arrangements are not good. It's just not an experience I ever want to repeat." She said she contacted the airline immediately after the incident with photo proof of what had happened, but was offered £30, or around $38, as a goodwill gesture for the inconvenience. The company later offered the Taylors a full £1,300 refund after it was contacted by the show here in the UK called Rip Off Britain, which is a BBC show, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think.
That's right. Yeah.
The airline, a German airline, later blamed the mishap on a last-minute aircraft change and said it would be further investigating the incident. That's a bit scary, really, isn't it? Having to sit on the floor.
I'm not really sure how that's legal.
I think actually it doesn't say this in this article, but as I say, this is one that I read. If you read the BBC article, I think actually what happened when it came for takeoff and landing, they were actually sat in the jump seats. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that what they're called? Jump seats?
The crew seat.
In the crew seat. So basically, they had to sit in the crew seats while the crew went somewhere else because I think there was some more down the other end. And the only reason in fairness, they shouldn't have been asked to sit on the floor. They should have made other arrangements. But they were only asked to sit in the floor while service was occurring because obviously they were then in the way of getting the trolleys and the carts and everything all out to do stuff. So I think in their defence, that's from a safety point of view, they weren't. But then, to be fair, if there'd have been turbulence and stuff, I mean, really, they would need to then be back in those seats, wouldn't they? So
I've had this happen to me once before. It was a few years ago now when, obviously, with certain airlines, you can pre-book your seats on the aircraft. When you go online, you can book a specific seat that you like. Most of us like to use Seat Guru to find a good seat these days. And when we got on board the aircraft, the tickets had given us printed tickets at the check-in were for different seats, and this was because the aircraft, like it says here, the aircraft had changed, and aircraft can vary with seating arrangements, so it's not always got the seats that you've pre-booked, or so it does happen. It's not very often, I don't think, but it does happen. So, what do you think, Nev?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit unfortunate, but of course, if, as Nick points out in the chat room, if there was any turbulence going on, then that could be quite a big thing, because obviously everybody has to sit down. But I know this is the wrong thing to say, and trust me to come up with it. But I think it'd be quite exciting actually to sit on the floor, wouldn't it, for the entire flight?
Right.
I know that's probably not very good, but
it's an unusual approach.
Well, I wouldn't have anywhere to put my Pinot Grigio, my caviar for one thing, But
well, you never. I mean, it's not long before it's finished anyway. Surely never. I mean, I don't suppose it's in your hand for very long. To be fair,
I'd rather them offer me the jump seat on the flight deck. To be fair, I mean, that's a seat I definitely wouldn't turn down.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. This is the thing.
So moving
those
on.
were the days.
Exactly. Yeah,
absolutely.
So moving on to the next story, and Matt, what happened here?
Well, obviously story number 2, so it must be a Ryanair story. This is on the Daily Express, so brace yourselves, everyone. Hogwash is about to occur. So Ryanair passenger accidentally gets on a wrong plane. Why didn't the airline stop him? So a Ryanair passenger flying from the UK back to Poland after the holidays ended up 1,000 miles away in Malta after he accidentally boarded the wrong plane, yet staff never said anything. Ryanair staff failed to identify a man who was getting on the wrong flight, leaving him stranded 1,000 miles away from home. Powell Lorenicki was flying back to Gdansk in Poland earlier from Leeds Bradford Airport earlier this month. However, the 75-year-old ended up erroneously getting on a plane headed for Malta. Staff did not notice he was on the wrong flight when he boarded the 6:50 a.m. flight, and he even managed to take his seat, reported the Telegraph and Argus, whatever that is. Anyway, the gentleman had no idea of the mistake he had made until he arrived and realised he couldn't get a taxi home from Malta International Airport. A staff member was overheard telling him, "I am sorry, sir, but I don't speak Polish." That's always helpful. According to the elderly gentleman, the elderly passenger's 34-year-old daughter, Ryanair staff had checked his boarding pass when he got onto the plane, but had given no indication of his error. Fortunately, he managed to fly from Malta to Gdansk later that day, thanks to staff at is it Aviasurf?
Aviasurf, yeah.
Aviasurf. The upset daughter said her father arrived home nearly 14 hours after he set off from the UK. Swissport, the handling agency for Ryanair at LBA, told the Telegraph and Argus that we are aware that a passenger was able to board an incorrect flight at Leeds Bradford Airport on Sunday the 6th of January. The passenger had undergone all airport security screening before boarding the flight and had a valid passport which had been checked. We are investigating how this occurred and we are rebriefing all staff on procedure. We would like to apologise to the gentleman for the inconvenience caused. Express.co.uk has contacted Ryanair for comment on the incident but not replied at the time of writing. Now, I think to be fair to Ryanair here, so it sounds like it was actually Swissport who were responsible for the error rather than Ryanair staff specifically. So
I mean, let's be honest here. He went to an awesome destination. I think he got on the right flight,
right?
Because
that's where he wanted to be, was it?
He went to the best country in
Did
Europe.
Right.
Personally,
Okay.
that's my own view.
Right,
but
I think Nev would beg to differ there.
I don't mind Malta. It's okay, but just too many cars from the 1970s.
How rude.
That adds to the flavour.
Yeah,
but when you board at the airports and you have your boarding card, which I think nearly all of them nowadays have the barcodes on the boarding, even the ones you print out yourself at home have the barcodes on. When you go through the gate to get onto the aircraft, they scan these barcodes. They tear off a strip, scan it, and they keep the strip, as their proof of stuff. Surely, when they scanned this guy's ticket at the gate, would it have not flagged on the screen in front of them?
Well,
Bing, this is
to be fair, it may not necessarily, again, because it depends on the airport, doesn't it? So at the airport he was at, there is every possibility that they may not have had the scanners and it was a manual visual check. And to be honest with you, at 10 to 7 in the morning, I'd like to think that I would be fully alert and aware of what's going on around me. But there is every possibility I might still be half asleep. So I mean, to be fair, if it was the old style ticket and it was just a printout that they were checking, maybe when you've just checked 100 and something or other tickets, perhaps if there isn't a computer involved. I mean, this I think is an advert for making sure that all airports have barcode readers. I think that's.
What do you think, Armando? Any views?
Short of it.
Yeah, no, I've actually been pretty impressed the way all the airlines and the ground crews have sort of embraced the barcodes and the technology. But I mean, I was out in Eastern Europe, and that airport did not have the electronic barcodes, and I don't know how they were getting all those people all at the same time onto 3 different flights. So I could see it happening. I've often wondered how often does it happen.
I think we'd be surprised actually. I mean, because this one made the news, but I mean, you don't know how many of these do occur. That perhaps don't make the headlines.
So moving on to the next story then, Nev, and a nice upgrade story for you from BA.
It is, and just before we do that, I'd like to have the chocolate brownie that's on Armando's menu that he was holding up.
He did.
It looks very tasty indeed.
Look, it's the best I could do in short notice. Leave me alone.
I'm not complaining, mate. I'm not complaining. But talking of NOsh and upgrades, BA reveals an upgrade to their premium economy service. As part of the £6.5 billion investment in services, the airline will introduce new menus from February the 1st, including a third main meal option plus a more substantial second hot meal later in the flight. This will be followed in the spring by new amenity kits, quilts and pillows in the World Traveller Plus cabin. Carolina Martinoli, BA's Director of Brand and Customer Experience, says this latest tranche of our £6.5 billion investment is set to improve World Traveller Plus, and customers will see a real change to the cabin. Last year, BA unveiled a new World Traveller Plus seat at Gatwick, featuring a 50% larger entertainment screen, as well as a 6-way adjustable leg, foot and headrest. The seat will be installed on the airline's A350 aircraft when it comes into service later this year. World Traveller Plus customers can pre-order their main meal up to 24 hours before departure through BA's website. I quite like World Traveller Plus, I must say, because obviously it's a bit more expensive than the economy side of things, but nowhere near as expensive as the business class. And actually it's good to see they're upgrading this part of it, because it was a little bit tired, I think, on some of the services. So it sounds like a good thing, but I had no idea they were spending quite that much money on all their services. £6.5 billion. That's incredible, isn't it?
I think this year in their premium economy is going to be a big thing. I think more and more airlines are adopting a premium economy class on the long-haul airlines, and the prices, if you look between a lot of the airlines, are reasonable, I think, when you look compared to economy. And obviously the level of the seating and obviously the level of the service you get is slightly higher. And I think a lot of people will pay that extra £100 to fly long haul in premium economy. So perhaps we could try this out in November, Nev.
I think we should, in respect of testing it out, so we can report back on it on the show.
Right. Okay.
Definitely.
I mean, if you guys could get free upgrades to premium economy for
I'll try my hardest.
Then that's absolutely fine. But I'm sorry, but the PT UK budget is not going to be spent on cheesy upgrades. All right.
So moving on to the next story, and Armando, it's an Airbus story for you this week.
Yeah, this is from Reuters. Airbus spends $300 million on a new Alabama plant for the A220. Down in Mobile, Alabama, Airbus has expanded its industrial presence in the United States on Wednesday, starting construction on a new assembly plant for the Canadian-developed A220 jetliner. 18 months after agreeing to buy the plane in the midst of a U.S.-Ottawa trade dispute, which I think we covered quite a bit, didn't we? Let's see, the European plane maker said it would invest $300 million and create 400 jobs in the plant to be built in the port of Mobile, alongside an existing assembly line for its best-selling A320 passenger jet, which already employs 700. Alabama and the city of Mobile would provide a total of some $26 million in state and municipal incentives to support the development. this is it talks a little bit about the history between the Boeing and the Airbus dispute over the A220, as we call it now. And let's see, the Airbus first studied using Mobile site for a proposed tanker for the U.S. Air Force, sweetening the bid with an offer to build commercial freighters. But after Airbus lost out to Boeing in 2011, after a long and politically charged contest, which I think we'll talk about that later in the military segment.
Is this a part of the US you're familiar with, Armando?
Yeah, I've been to Mobile quite a bit, and this is one of those surprising locations. I don't think anybody goes to Mobile on vacation, and it's actually a really nice part of the U.S. right on the Gulf of Mexico, and the Mobile airport is a pretty big industrial airport with, I think, 2 runways. I think they just renovated all of it, so I could certainly see it. And just up the street in South Carolina, I think Boeing is producing its Dreamliners. I think they're in Charleston. So the whole southeast United States is sort of just prime real estate for aircraft production right now.
And the jobs thing as well it's awesome news for you guys in the US and stuff, having all these jobs being made.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of those areas could certainly use it. They're very industrial areas. But there's been a lot of companies. Both of those cities are shipbuilding companies also. So there's a lot of skilled labor in the areas.
Yeah. So moving on to the next story, and it's sad news for anyone who loves the 727, the Boeing 727. The headline, this is on the independent.co.uk website, and the headline, last Boeing 727 passenger aircraft makes its final flight. So the final Boeing 727 commercial aircraft to carry passengers has made its last flight. Operated by Iran Asman Airlines, flight EP851 did a 2-hour domestic route from Zaidan to Tehran, Mehrabad International Airport on Sunday the 13th of January. The jet itself was a 38-year-old Boeing 727-200 Advanced and was the last to be flown as a passenger aircraft with a commercial airline. Journalist Babak Tadvi tweeted the video of the final flight, writing, Echo Papa Alpha Sierra Bravo was going to be retired this evening, but was called to log another flight prior to her retirement tonight. This was the world's last passenger-carrying Boeing 727. The Boeing 727 model has been in service for nearly 55 years and was at one time a popular aircraft choice for a variety of airlines. The trijet aircraft first came into service in 1963, able to fly more passengers than most competitor narrow-body jets at higher speeds with a lower operating cost per passenger, according to the Point Sky. Major airlines in the US, or most of the major airlines in the US, had 727s as part of their fleet. More than 1,800 of the aircraft were purchased during its 20-year production run. When it stopped being made in 1984, the 727 was most widely sold commercial jet ever, a title that has since been taken by the plane's successor, the 737. The 727's use as a commercial aircraft has dwindled over the last 2 decades as the airlines find it much more cost-effective to fly twin-engine aircraft that use less fuel efficient, or use more fuel efficient engines. However, sadly, Sunday marked this final commercial flight of the aircraft model. It's still used to transport freight, though, with some even used to operate charter flights or as private planes for the government officials. The news comes after British Airways announced it was retiring its final 767. We covered that a few weeks ago, the first wide-bodied twin jet in November last year. Now, the 727, I'm lucky I've flown on that a few times in my younger years, when I was a lot younger. So I've sampled the 727 greatness, and also we've not forgetting we saw this aircraft at Farnborough, because they use this as the oil spill aircraft here in the UK with the big boom on the tail end for spraying chemical suppressants onto oil spills on the water. So I think they've got 2 of those in their fleet, so it's still a very popular aircraft. What do you think, Nev? Did you have a chance, Nev, to ever sample the 727?
I did. I went on one. That was the Dan Air 727 service from Gatwick. I can't remember where we went to actually, but no, great aircraft. And actually, if you look at the aircraft, when you look at it fully configured for landing, how much flap there is, and the shape of the wing is just incredible. And as a result of that, I believe that the landing speeds are actually very slow, so it can actually get in and out of quite small airports. So it's a real advantage. But it was a great aircraft, a little bit noisy, certainly the first ones, but I think the latter ones had got hash kits fitted to them. But
is that the age again, though, perhaps, because it's an older craft? Do you think?
Well, I think the thing
is noisy and stuff.
Well, yes, but also, I mean, back in the day, the BAC 111s, the MD80s, the 727s, they were all quite noisy on takeoff, as well as the 737-200s as well. But of course, they were very popular aircraft at the time, and that noise was kind of acceptable at the time because that's all there was. Now things have changed a great deal. People want quieter machinery.
That along with the black plumes of smoke that used to trail behind them, Nev, as they took off. I can always remember that quite fondly.
Have you had much experience, Armando, with the 727?
I have. My dad was an airline pilot. He used to fly for Prinair, and they had a agreement with Eastern Airlines. So when I grew up in Puerto Rico, and when we used to fly back to the United States, we'd always take an L-1011 from San Juan to somewhere on the southeast, usually Miami, and then
he's going to start dribbling now. You've mentioned that.
I know,
aircraft.
right? But it was often a 727, and I remember, that was the early 80s, and that was essentially the dawn of the jet age, the commercial jet age, like Nev was saying. So, it was what it was.
Yeah, I can still remember these. Let's say Nev down air. It's just suddenly dawned on me where I flew the 727, and that was to Dubrovnik.
Oh yes,
with down air. So that's very fond memories indeed. So Matt, the next story, moving on,
indeed,
and it's it's a shocking story, but I think Nev's got a bit of information after you've read this.
Yes, Nev's done a bit of digging, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Contacted the various powers that be. This is, again, on the Express newspaper, obviously, which is where everybody goes for their aviation-related content. And the headline is Watch, so I'll play that in a moment. Shocking moment, Ryanair plane is haphazardly prepared in a very odd way. So a Ryanair flight to Stansted Airport was spotted at, is it Brindisi? Brindisi.
Is it?
No. Somebody correct me. B-R-I...
Brindisi. Yeah, Brindisi
Airport.
It's it's one of the diversion airports.
Okay, Italy being de-iced by ground staff with buckets of hot water. An alarming video captured the incident, which took place last week. The footage shows an airport employee hurrying towards a stationary Ryanair plane with bucketfuls of water. He takes this over two colleagues on the steps and swaps the full bucket out for an empty one. The water is then splashed over the engine below in an attempt to get rid of ice ahead of the journey. Normally, planes should be de-iced by using specialised equipment to spray the aircraft with a heated combination of, propylene glycol, is that right?
Propylene
glycol and water to prevent the ice from reforming. The video was posted on Facebook by Italian politician, and he captioned the footage saying, look how they tried to de-ice the planes at this airport. Shame. The airport operators were satisfied with the unusual procedure, however, reported The Sun. I do love when they do this. This is the Daily Express, and they're reporting on something that The Sun reported. Anyway, they explained the guidelines. Buckets of hot water at 60 degrees are allowed when the air temperature is 0 degrees. They added the captain was aware and satisfied the procedure was to remove a little residual snow. It was a perfectly safe procedure. Now, Nev, you've been chatting to I don't know whether we should be naming them, so we'll just say a very good close friend of the show. And what did they have to say when you had a chat?
Yeah, an airline captain, shall we say?
Yeah,
and he says it's perfectly okay. It's actually within their rules. they can do that. And so it's a non-story, ladies and gentlemen. It's a lot of writing, but slightly unusual. What worries me more, though, is those French protesters getting up on the aircraft with their yellow jackets.
Yellow jackets
just
on, yeah, absolutely.
wrong, isn't it?
Yes, this is true.
Maybe
absolutely.
not. Maybe that's not them at all.
I had a thought it might have been the local scout group with their kind of Bob a Job week where they sort of wash the aircraft with some soapy water and some sponges.
Right. Yeah.
Imagine the money they'd get for washing a 737-800.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
A bit more than a Ford Capri, anyway.
A Ford Capri. How old are you?
All right, okay.
Oh my goodness. Right, moving on.
And moving swiftly on to
Nev, please save us.
The next story. And Nev, I've obviously chosen a nice little tech one for you.
Yes. Is this about the snow?
No.
One?
No.
I've got the wrong story. How careless of me. That's
from the Telegraph.
Oh, yes, it's about the Wi-Fi, isn't it? That's right.
Yeah.
And of course, it's on the Telegraph, another excellent source for aviation news. And it says that it wasn't too long ago that Wi-Fi at 35,000 feet was a pipe dream, leaving technophiles frustrated and everyone else eternally grateful. But the dawn of internet access in the sky is now and well and truly behind us as more and more airlines equip their fleets with the technology. Last week, the low-cost Norwegian became the latest to announce that passengers on its long-haul flights will be able to browse the internet, send emails, and generally while away the hours from this year, with half its fleet of 787 Dreamliners expected out by 2020. The airline, which has offered Wi-Fi on its European short-haul routes since 2011, claims to be the first budget carrier to introduce the service free of charge on intercontinental routes. Norwegian is far from alone. According to analysis by travel comparison site Traveloka, only 10 of the world's 50 best airlines, as ranked by Skytrax, have not yet introduced Wi-Fi on any of their planes. Says, does this mean endless nuisance phone calls? Well, it's worth noting that although one of the last vestiges of phone-free civilization has been besieged, the majority of the world's airlines still prohibit voice calls on flights. Indeed, in the US, it is the aviation regulator, the FAA, that has imposed the ban. Elsewhere, airlines are free to choose what is available to their customers. So on British Airways flights, for example, the carrier says that VoIP, which is Voice over Internet Protocol, are unavailable. Virgin Atlantic, however, does not permit voice calls, with the service available on half of the airline's fleet. Neither does Emirates. So how does it work? Well, to simplify, there are two ways for an internet signal to reach your device at 35,000 feet. The first is via ground-based mobile broadband towers, which send signals up to an aircraft antenna, usually on the base of the fuselage. As you travel into different sections of the airspace, however, the plane automatically connects to signals from the nearest tower. So there is, in theory at least, no interruption to your browsing. But if you're passing over large bodies of water or particularly remote terrain, connectivity can be an issue. The second method uses satellite technology. Planes connect to satellites in geostationary orbit, which send and receive signals to Earth via receivers and transmitters. These are the same satellites that are used in television signals, weather forecasting, and covert military operations. Maybe they shouldn't have said that. But anyway, information is transmitted to and from your smartphone via an antenna on top of the aircraft, which connects to the closest satellite signal. Information is passed between the ground and the plane via the satellite. Wi-Fi signal is distributed to plane passengers via an onboard router. In both cases, the US has a much more developed infrastructure than anywhere else in the world. So US carriers have a better and cheaper Wi-Fi offering than those in Europe. Of course, the question everyone asks is, well, why is the Wi-Fi so slow? Technology is developing fast, of course, but it's struggled to keep up with the sophistication and sheer number of Wi-Fi guzzling devices. Back in 2008, when in-flight broadband company GoGo, then known as Aircell, launched its first onboard Wi-Fi service on a Virgin America plane, the 3 megabits per second connection was adequate for a few laptops and streaming video was prohibited. But now, with every passenger toting at least one device to connect to countless apps, websites and services, there's a much greater strain on resources. These days, a satellite connection offers around 12 megabits per second, but satellites are expensive to maintain and upgrade. So that technology is lagging behind as well. So this is always the problem, isn't it, with Wi-Fi? And if you're going to charge for a service, people are going to expect a certain level of service. And what I'm sure they're trying to avoid, which is why there's been a slow introduction, is lots of refunds and lots of people being unsatisfied with the service. So I think this is why we're seeing a bit of a delay here.
But I said this last week, didn't I? It's like literally the very fact that you can sit in an aircraft, you are at what, 30,000 feet? Is that what is the height normally?
35-ish. Yeah.
35-ish.
Well, anything up to 39, 40,000 feet.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're all right. Let's say you're 40,000 feet in the air. Okay, you're in the air. You're in your air. You're flying away. You connect to the Wi-Fi that's in the thing. And you send a WhatsApp, and your friend, who is literally the other side of the world, receives it. Does that not blow people's minds?
Well, we've had a few comments in the chat room while I've been reading Gat's story. Tony S has said he couldn't care less about Wi-Fi if he's got a Windows seat.
Good point. Yeah,
Good point. Jonathan Warner has said that if, like me, you get sat next to some idiot who wants to blind down all the way, then maybe Wi-Fi would be a good option.
Good point. Yeah.
Neil Lamborn has said it would be nice to be able to use Flight Radar 24, but if the trade-off is having some Dom Jolly style person next to you going, "Hello, I'm on the plane," then he's not that fussed.
Right.
Okay. Chris Griggs has said that he used it for the first time I could for the novelty value, but not bothered since. Rick Bell, hello to you, Rick Bell. He said, I'm in the camp that it is almost a deal breaker to have or not have Wi-Fi on board. Not so much to tweet and browse the web, but to watch a movie or a show.
But realistically, I mean, we're a long, long way away from you being able to use Netflix in the air, let's be honest. I mean, short of having a remote server and sort of storing a selection of Netflix films, I mean, you're not going to be able to do that in the air. The bandwidth required is just huge, isn't it?
Captain Nick has obviously said that apart from Flight Radar 24, that he'd love to stream our show whilst having the Wi-Fi.
Right. Okay. I mean, it's
I
one way.
As an endorsement.
Yeah, that is, yes, it did. There's also another way, as I say, our show is officially listed as an actual cure for insomnia by the NHS here in the UK. So,
Armando, you do plenty of flying here, there, and everywhere. Is it bothered for you? Do you care? You couldn't care less?
No, I turn everything off. That's a couple hours. That's just for me. So I generally, that's the only time I ever read a book, or I'll read a pub or a manual or something like that. But I try not to get on the internet at all. I don't even try it.
I mean, I did when I went over to Pittsburgh. I did just because of the sheer novelty of the fact that A, I was on a plane, and B, it was available, so I could, and I did. Yeah.
I was having this conversation with my colleagues.
I didn't know that there were sort of ground-based internet to an aircraft. That's actually news to me. I thought it was all satellite nowadays, but that's got to be I'm going to have to look into that a little bit and see how, if that's a 4G signal that they're beaming up, because 30,000 feet is way up there. So.
Yeah, that's true. What were you saying, Nev? Sorry.
I was going to say, I was having a chat with my colleagues at the office the other day, and we were trying to work out what was wrong with various things to do with the company. And we've all got these smartphones, tablets, as much internet as you want, and everything you could possibly need. And what we haven't got anymore is thinking time. And actually, a couple of hours on the plane without those sorts of distractions to just gather your thoughts about all sorts of subjects. It's a nice change to be able to do that. So actually, for me, not having Wi-Fi on the plane is absolutely no problem at all, because I just need to switch off sometimes, literally and metaphorically as well.
Well, yeah, indeed. There is a lot to be said for that.
Very true.
Yeah.
I'm normally pestering the the crew just to chat about aviation stuff, but that's just me.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on to the next story. Armando, this next story is for you. It's amusing, I will say, and Matt's got a few bits to play.
Yeah, hopefully you can play the video and the pictures. But this is from a local news outlet, ABC 13, out there in California. This is heavy snowfall leaves a plane in tail stand at airport. I think it means sitting on its tail. Down in Truckee, California, the snow was so thick and heavy at an airport on Wednesday that it caused an airplane to stand up on its back end. The National Weather Service in Reno says a Cessna Citation X was surrounded by about 20 inches of so-called Sierra cement, snow that had fallen at the airport. Airport spokesperson Mark Lamb says 16 inches of snow fell overnight and added weight to the rear of the airplane, which houses the aircraft's already heavy engines. Blizzard warning had been issued for the Lake Tahoe area until about 7 a.m. Thursday, with 90-mile-per-hour wind gusts and between 2 to 5 feet of snow in areas 7,000 feet and above sea level. And I believe Truckee is right at the Truckee Airport is at about 6,000 feet. MSL. So yeah, this is interesting. Actually, I have a friend that works out at Truckee Airport, and I tried to reach out to her just before the show started to see if she also flies a citation. I wanted to see if it was her citation. She said, yeah, it should have been tied down with those kinds of wind gusts, but yeah, that's a lot of weight already on the back of the airplane. If you look at the pictures of a Citation X, it's got a huge horizontal stab, and the engines are back there. So,
what do you think damage-wise, Armando? Do you think this would have caused any damage to the aircraft?
It'll buff out. No,
It'll buff
I actually
out,
don't
yeah.
think. I would love to see some security camera video of this, because it was probably a very ungraceful, just sort of topple back onto its backside. So I think they'll get it back in the air, no issues.
Yeah, they'll be okay in this country now. I mean, we only get about 5 or 6 flakes a year, so but it'd be unless you had a polystyrene kids toy plane, you'd be absolutely fine. But no,
yeah, if you're out in the northern climates of California, Nevada, and upstate New York, and the Northeast, yeah, you'll regularly get 1 to 2 feet of snow in a night, and it's not uncommon to get 6 feet of snow in a week.
Wow. So moving on to the next story, and this one is on the HurriyetDailyNews.com. And the headline is Istanbul Airport to become fully operational on March the 3rd. And it's an airport we've talked about in a few previous shows, actually. This new huge hub being built, or it's been finished built in Istanbul. So the gradual shift from Ataturk Airport, I think that's how you pronounce it, Nev? Ataturk?
Yes, yeah.
Ataturk, yeah. To the new Istanbul Airport will be complete on March the 3rd. The General Director of State Airports Administration has announced, we hope to conclude the gradual shift on March the 3rd. Henceforth, all commercial flights will be from Istanbul Airport instead of Ataturk Airport, he told reporters at the opening of the duty-free's second phase, a very important part of the airport, yes. He also expressed that the 2-month test period had been prolonged after President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's inauguration on the 29th of October 2018. Because we did not want to move in the winter season, we decided to gradually shift until March, he said. According to the General Director, only general aviation, maintenance and repair hangars and cargo flights and expositions will be allowed to continue to operate at the old airport. This was a great need, and Ataturk Airport is going to meet this need, he said. Our navigation facilities will continue to operate until at least 2022 and 2023, there she added as well. Istanbul Airport, for the first phase, was opened on the 29th of October last year, has the potential to welcome 90 million passengers annually, and following the second phase of construction, which is expected to be completed in 2023, that number will then rise to around 200 million passengers annually. It will provide employment for 1.5 million people indirectly, and will take flights to 350 destinations worldwide worldwide, including Africa, once completed. The airport has 2.5 million tonnes of annual cargo capacity and will reach 5.5 million tonnes when all phases are completed, according to officials. It's safe to say this is going to be one hell of an airport when it opens, and obviously a very good hub to fly to then go on to other destinations rather than do one long flight. But have you been to Turkey yourself, Nev, on a flight?
I haven't, no. This airport, as you say, is going to be absolutely enormous, and strategically it's geographically placed in the perfect spot, isn't it? Just on the edge of Europe there, and a very good stopover for all sorts of things. I think the key thing for the country probably is to try and make people stay there a little bit longer, maybe a day or two on their way from one part of the world to another, rather than just using the airport purely as a transit thing. It'd be nice to get some people into the city of Istanbul and spend their money there. But it's absolutely enormous construction. I've never seen anything quite like it.
Have you been to Turkey at all, Armando? Is that a country you visit?
No, I've never been there. It's on my list of places to visit. I'm right there with Nev. If you follow that sort of Icelandair model of offering good deals on long layovers, I'd absolutely do it.
I'm glad they got the most important thing done first, Matt. The duty-free shops.
Of course, absolutely.
If you're going to build an airport,
on these things,
you've got to get those duty-free shops built.
I do encourage any of our av geeks to go on Google Earth, and I just typed that airport in, or international airport in Istanbul. There are 3 Ataturk airport is not small by any means. The new one is pretty big, and then there's another one called Gorik Airport or Gökhan Airport. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. They're huge airports. There's 3 humongous airports in Istanbul.
Wow.
Didn't know that. You heard it here first.
Yeah. Right.
So the next story, Matt, is one for you, and this one is on the businesstraveller.com website.
Yeah, indeed. So this is on the businesstraveller.com website, and the headline is Why Cathay Pacific Doesn't Fly the Airbus A380 Super Jumbo.
Why don't they?
Bear with me,
okay.
You'll find out. Regular travellers with Cathay Pacific will no doubt be aware that amongst the aircraft in the Hong Kong flag carrier's long-haul fleet, the double-decker A380 Super Jumbo, Airbus's largest aircraft, is noticeably absent. Cathay Pacific offers 6 long-haul aircraft, among them the Boeing 777-200-300 and -300ER, the A330-300 and the A350-900, and, most recently, the new A350-1000. Aside from being popular amongst travellers, the A380 is also the highest capacity commercial aircraft on the market, able to accommodate hundreds more passengers than Cathay Pacific's largest aircraft, the 777. It is also operated by many of the airline's major rivals, among them China's Southern, Emirates, Etihad, Singapore Airlines and Thai Airways, as well as a few of its fellow One World Alliance partners, noticeably British Airways, Qantas, Qatar Airways and, to an extent, Malaysia Airlines. So, why doesn't Cathay Pacific operate the world's largest aircraft? Speaking in a video as part of the airline's new You Asked Us series, the passenger network manager Jason Choi explained that while the A380 offers a greater individual capacity than other aircraft, it's not without its drawbacks. The A380 has a lot of limitations because of its size, which can cause all sorts of complications when operating to the airports we currently fly to, said Choi. These large planes tend to have longer turnaround times. The result of this is that on certain routes, using slightly smaller aircraft than the Super Jumbo can mean more round trips per day, meaning greater frequency on the route. Citing the airline's key Hong Kong to London route, which serves some 1,500 passengers, Choi said that we have the choice of 5 Boeing 777s, or we can just deploy 3 A380s, since they are larger aircraft. We prefer to offer more frequency and flexibility, and therefore more choices to our customers. Cathay Pacific has also been expanding the capacity of its 777 fleet by moving from a more spacious 9 across configuration in its economy class cabins to the less popular 10 abreast setup. This has given the airline more economy class capacity on board its retrofitted 777s without needing to eat into the number of seats in its premium cabins. Another key factor in choosing lower density aircraft than the A380 is that they offer more room for cargo, an important part of the airline's business. After announcing the first back-to-back annual loss in the airline's history in March last year, with its net loss for 2017 coming to more than 1.25 billion Hong Kong dollars, in US dollars $159 million, Cathay Pacific managed to narrow its losses for the first half of 2018 to just 263 million Hong Kong dollars. That's 33.5 million US dollars. The carrier's performance was aided in particular by strong revenue from its cargo operations, along with various cost-cutting measures as part of its 3-year transformation plan. As you can imagine, the A380s carry lots more passengers and their baggage, which also means there will be relatively less space for cargo, Choi added. Now, I didn't know that was a thing, that you quite often had cargo in as well as luggage and things. I didn't realise that was a thing.
It's a good way for airlines to boost their profit by carrying cargo underneath where we're all sitting in the cabin.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Part actually of the opera, a lot of people as well. It's a with sort of fares going down and down all the time, they need to keep that revenue up, and carrying large amounts of cargo is a very good revenue stream for the airlines.
Yeah,
That's business class, first class, and the cargo that they carry are really the biggest chunk of revenue for these airlines. The economy cabin is not.
Yeah, I just didn't register it as a thing. I've got to be honest. It makes perfect sense. I mean, with the best will in the world. I mean, the hull is not full. When it comes to everybody's cases and stuff like that, I just didn't even give it a thought.
Yeah, also worth a note as well. Cathay Pacific they've got 21 of the new 777Xs on order, which are going to start being delivered to the airline from 2021 to 2024. So they'll have quite a big fleet. I mean, they've got a fleet now of 150 aircraft, so they've got quite a large fleet. Oh. And this is a bit of information for you. They were founded in 1946 in September, 72 years odd ago. So,
wow.
Yes, been around a while, they have.
Indeed.
So, moving on to the next story, Nev.
It's on the Maxim.com website, and it says that Boeing and NASA reveal radical new transonic wing design. While flashy developments like drones and flying cars have dominated aviation news, Boeing has been quietly revamping classic aircraft design. The transonic truss-braced wing concept is a perfect example. With what the manufacturer terms a lightweight, ultra-thin and more aerodynamic wing concept, Boeing has, along with NASA, created an original wing structure that could leave other planes in the dust. Well, that's not very good, is it? But it does say that the average cruising speed for a current passenger plane is, according to Boeing, Mach 0.8 or just over 600 miles per hour. With a transonic truss-braced wing, TTBW, planes could fly at the same speed, but at greater altitude and with more efficiency. Wind tunnel tests at NASA's Ames Research Center and almost a decade's worth of study led to the TTBW in its current form. Naturally, it all came from the joint Boeing-NASA Subsonic Ultra Green Aircraft Research Program, or SUGAR for short. How sweet. As seen in the 2012 video above, I don't know if Matt's showing this to you, SUGAR has been at work on reconfiguring the way planes work for years, and previous designs, including the Volt, a hybrid electric plane concept. While a jet built with the speed-enhancing TTBW won't match the speed of a supersonic plane like Concorde or Boom's supersonic Overture, it will perhaps lead to a new line of more eco-friendly commercial aircraft. Efficiency and range expansion will mean less fuel consumption and likely reduce noise pollution in the bargain. Even better for travellers in the future, less fuel consumption may lead to lower ticket prices. We can dream about it.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, the thing now, isn't it? Because obviously supersonic travel, we've all had it, and it's been very successful for a lot of the time, very expensive too. And they're looking at ways of improving efficiency all the time. And obviously with things like the Dreamliner and the A350, they've gone quite a long way to increasing aircraft range. And the next phase is to make them fly a bit higher because the air is not as dense and therefore the engines are more efficient. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the next phase of this is. But there's clearly a lot of research going on.
Yeah,
rather interesting.
Do you think we'll ever reach a point where we are seeing, in the same way that people like Volvo and things are talking about only making electric cars in the future? Do you think there'll be a time where we just see electric planes? I mean, I don't think we'll see it in our lifetime.
Not in our lifetime, no. I think the thing is, it's the same problem with the car, isn't it? It's range, and it's all about that kind of thing, and how much you've got to pay initially. So if you look at electric cars today, they are expensive to buy, and
very true.
You can't just sort of stop off for a bit of a top up.
No.
Halfway across the Atlantic.
Myla makes a very good point in the chat room, actually, that the Cessna has a strut underneath the wing like that too, which is very true, because the Cessna does have a strut like that underneath the wing.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Are you essentially comparing a Cessna to a Boeing 777?
No, that's how lovely Myla in the chat room said
how
that.
How many of the concepts are actually the same?
Yeah, true.
Mind you, I'd love to see a Cessna with engines like that hanging under.
Right.
That'd be interesting. So
yes, I bet.
I know on the electric propulsion point there, we'll probably see it in general aviation, maybe corporate aviation first for a good number of years. I know Magnus Aircraft and Siemens have partnered up. I saw them down in the Aero Expo at Friedrichshafen. So they had a pretty good setup, and I think they had a little stumble a couple months ago with one of their sort of test aircraft, but I think we'll see it in general aviation first before we see it in commercial aviation.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah. So the next story, Armando, is a bit of a dimmable story for you.
Yeah, this is from Aerospace Manufacturing, or aeromag.com, which is the new Boeing 777X to offer Gentex dimmable windows. So the Gentex Corporation is a global supplier of electronically dimmable windows, or EDWs, for the aerospace industry. And they've announced that its latest generation of dimmable aircraft windows will be offered as an optional content to the new Boeing 777X. So EDWs are I thought it was electrochromatic, but it's electrochromic-based sunlight and heat control solution that eliminates the need for traditional window shades and lessens the dependence on AC air conditioning systems. Or no, sorry, is actually Nev, jump in. Is it air conditioning systems or AC systems? Well, we'll see. I don't know.
Yes, I think you're right, actually.
EDWs allow passengers to selectively darken aircraft windows as desired, while still enabling them to view the scenery outside. The 777X program will be the first to utilize Gentex's latest EDW technology, capable of eliminating more than 99.999% of visible light at twice the darkening speed of previous windows. I think the Dreamliner has those, the electrochromatic ones. The 777X system will be designed with a centralized control, allowing the flight crew to set specific lighting scenarios for day or night flight without ever reaching over passengers to open or close those mechanical shades. Let's see, the Steve Downing, the president of Gentex, to be a continued partner with Boeing as we look to expand and improve our dimmable glass product offerings. With careful design collaboration with Boeing, our teams have developed a robust EDW system that easily integrates into the airframe for optimal control, aesthetics, performance, and reliability. It goes on a little bit to talk about how...
I've tried these. I had a go with these with the Dreamliner when we flew on BA's one, and they're not without... I mean, the ones on the Dreamliner, they're not without their glitches.
Yeah.
Slight issues. But
so my understanding is now that this works, Nev, correct me if I'm wrong, but this system works where it basically passes a current through the glass, doesn't it? And that's how it's the electric current being passed through the glasses, how it reacts and darkens according to something like that.
We've used it in the AV world for many years, sort of shop windows and retail environments and that kind of thing. It comes to something when they're sort of servicing the aircraft or whatever it is, and they go, oh yeah, we've got to do a firmware update on the windows. It's
as you do,
taking it to a new level.
And for once, we're not talking about Microsoft products, which is a refreshing change. But anyway,
that's no bad thing, let me tell you.
Yeah. Moving on.
So the last story in the commercial news segment this week, it's one that was actually pointed out to me this afternoon by our Mr. Neville Bounds, and well done for that, Nev. So Matt, it's a story about your favourite airline.
My favourite airline. Here we go. Yes. Okay. So this is on the Guardian newspaper. It says Ryanair issues profit warnings as winter fares fall. So Ryanair has issued its second profit warning in 4 months, blaming intense competition over the winter that prompted the Irish budget airline to cut fares. Profits for the year ending 31st of March will only be 100 million euros. That's will be 100. Let me read the story properly. Profits for the year ending the 31st of March will be 100 million euros. That's 88 million pounds lower than previous expectations.
Ouch.
Between 1 billion to 1.1 billion euros, the company said in a statement to the stock market. That was down from 1.1 billion euros to 1.2 billion euros range previously expected. Now, forgive me here for not feeling too sorry for Mr. O'Leary, but he still essentially made over €1 billion worth of profit. So I don't think we need to be worrying about Ryanair folding anytime soon.
No.
But Ryanair's chief executive, Michael O'Leary, this is always a treat for the listener, said that he was disappointed to cut the company's profit guidance and said the airline could be forced to further reduce fares and guidance. We cannot rule out further cuts to airfares and or slightly lower full-year guidance if there are unexpected Brexit or security developments which adversely impact yields between now and the end of March. Ryanair shares fell 5% after the profit warning, which was the result of lower than expected airfares in the second half of the company's financial year, which includes the Christmas holiday period. Average fares from November onwards fell by 7%, considerably lower than the 2% fall in the company that the company had expected. Ryanair previously issued a warning over profits back in October after it suffered a summer of disruption and flight cancellations as cabin crew based in Spain, Belgium, the Netherlands, Portugal, Italy and Germany went on strike. It was forced to cut hundreds of flights in August and September. O'Leary is betting that Ryanair can benefit from the medium term from a larger share of the market as other budget competitors struggle. The outspoken chief executive has previously said he expects more airlines to go bust, and certainly from news that we've been hearing this week, actually, that is very much on the cards, isn't it, Nev? I think with a few.
Yes, there's lots of things going on in the aviation world.
Indeed,
at the moment, shall we say?
Yeah.
But more shockingly is that we went for 1 hour and 7 minutes before the Brexit word.
That is a good point, actually. Yes, it's a good point. Well made. Yes. Apologies, by the way, to those watching on YouTube. We are having some lighting issues in our studio here, which will be dealt with in our annual general meeting on Saturday tomorrow. But
yes,
so apologies.
Thrashing and P45s being handed
Indeed, absolutely. So apologies for the lighting issues here in the studio tonight. Now, actually, as we're on the subject of still in the commercial segment, although we've finished, we did receive some feedback, didn't we?
We did, because you remember last week we were talking about...
Oh, sorry. We're talking about bad PA systems on aircraft. those horrible PA systems that they have on some aircraft where the flight crew sound more like bees stuck in a rather hollow plant pot.
Okay.
So Matt, what happened? We got some feedback.
Yeah. Well, now the thing is it's literally arrived hot off the presses. So the long and the short is, and he's trying to press multiple buttons here because he's picked up.
Warning.
I need to go back to button pressing school, don't I? I'm really not doing very well here. But we received some last minute feedback that came from a certain old curmudgeon.
Hi there, boys. Captain Nick here. So you don't think the Airbus PA system is up to snuff, is that right? I must warn you that people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, so let's have a quick look at it and perhaps you will have a little more sympathy. Let's start with the input end of things. The microphones, and I'm just dealing with the pilot side of things to start with. We can talk about the cabin equipment in a mo. The pilot has 4 microphones available to him. Left to right on the captain's side, that includes the mic built into the oxygen mask, a large and good quality hand mic, a headset mic, and on the end of the center console, a telephone-style handset, which is actually part of the cabin communication system, so I'll leave that for a moment. The other 3 mics feed into the audio management unit, which each pilot can control and set their own audio needs through an audio control panel, or ACP. Imagine the ACP as a tiny mixer unit. It controls 16 audio input channels and all their volumes, allowing the selection and setting of 3 VHF, 2 HF radios, an interphone system that connects the pilot to the ground crew in the nose wheel well, and a multitude of other jack points around the aircraft, such as near doors on the engines and such, and a separate cabin interphone system that connects into the telephones at each of the cabin crew stations. That's just on the top line. The second row of controls sets audio for the navigation equipment, the ILS markers, 2 VORs and 2 ADFs. Can also mix in 2 satellite telephone inputs, and finally, the one you hate apparently, the PA system. It also has individually selectable torque controls for all the radios, and the 2 interphone systems, the 2 sat phone systems, and the PA. It performs other functions like allowing separate interphone talk between the pilots, a press-to-talk transmit switch, a cell call reset, not important right now, and a voice filter for the navigation beacons. That's quite some little box, and it's only about 6 inches by 4 inches big. What's more, there are 4 of them on the flight deck, allowing individual mixing of audio and mic feeds for any of the 4 occupants, the 2 pilots and 2 observers. Above the pilots' heads is an ancillary panel with call buttons for all the interphone stations, such as the mechanic, the crew rest areas, and each of the cabin phone locations. For us to hear what's going on, we can use either the headset, the loudspeakers, or both. So we can mix the 16 audio feeds and listen to them all, or just the ones we want, and we can individually control all their levels. When we talk, the ACP will direct the audio signal correctly to one of the 5 chosen radios, the mechanic's interphone system, the cabin crew interphone system, one of the 2 satellite phones, or the PA. That's just some of the variables. Let's not forget that each observer has a transmit switch, and the pilots have 2. You were talking about the passenger address system. The PA system has inputs from each of the cabin crew stations using their interphone handsets, from each station on the flight deck, all 4 of them, from the pilot's position using either their oxygen mask, their headset or hand mic, or the interphone handset located on the end of the center console. That's a total of around 14 inputs just for the PA, remembering that most of those inputs are multifunctional. Because the pilots only sit a couple of feet away from their loudspeakers, there's also a muting circuit built into their audio inputs to prevent acoustic feedback by attenuating the signal. So, when making a PA to the passengers, the pilot has several options. Let's not hope he is using his oxygen mask or things will have gone badly wrong. Usually he uses either his headset, his hand mic, a little complicated as that needs the pressing of 2 buttons simultaneously, or the interphone handset on the end of the center console. I'm not even going to go into what happens within the cabin, as when the pilot speaks, the audio goes simultaneously to the loudspeakers, even the ones in the loos, and the entertainment system for those wearing headsets, pausing whatever movie they are watching. The volume must be preset, so there is never any danger of audio being accidentally muted. So, why doesn't it sound perfect every time? Well, being the audio wizards you are, I expect both Nav and Matt can already see some of the problems. This is a hugely complicated audio setup with a multitude of inputs. It has to convert the audio from analog to digital and back again. It has to compete with a range of background noises, from the relative quiet during boarding to the sound of the air passing the aircraft at several hundred knots, plus the roar of the engines at full power, which for those seated behind the wing is impressively loud. Now you guys use professional mixing desks, and even with all your experience, you can occasionally get things wrong. The levels might not be balanced properly. Something might not quite be on the right channel or whatever. The system in an aircraft has to work on normal power, reduced power, and even, in the case of a serious emergency, on battery power alone. It has to do it automatically and without failing, as it is a vital system of communication. The backup are loud hailers, and we don't really want to go there. Being on an aircraft, it has to be lightweight and also pretty foolproof. And here comes the crunch. When you hear a poor PA audio, I don't think it's actually the aircraft. We test it throughout the entire aircraft before every flight. The weak link in the chain is probably the person making the PA. The cabin crew have the advantage of hearing their PAs as they make them, so there really isn't any excuse for them. They all use the interphone handsets, which don't have great microphones, but I suspect they have built-in pop filters and a reasonably sized condenser. The pilots, on the other hand, can't hear what their voice sounds like, as we have that big old cockpit door firmly shut. We can hear what comes through our headsets or the loudspeakers, but since those have individual level controls, it doesn't tell us really what's going on in the cabin. Some pilots use the headset mic, which is a micro condenser, and would have started with a foam cover. But the second pilot to use that headset would probably have binned it, as who wants to swap spit with the previous pilot? They must very quickly become a hotbed of microbes, and they need to be very close to the mouth to get good levels. There's no doubt that the headset mic produces pretty lousy audio, with a lot of breath sounds and distortion. It's okay for the radio, but awful when it's amplified up and shot out into the cabin. An alternative is the hand mic. This is a nice microphone and would work well, but it needs 2 hands to use it when using it on the PA channel. The left hand holds the mic and presses the transmit switch, whilst the right hand presses and holds the PA transmit channel button, which must be held down. It's better now with LED lights behind that switch, but in the old days it would burn the end of your finger, which hurt like the devil, but did keep those who liked the sound of their own voice down to a short announcement. For me, the best option is the handset on the center console. It connects directly to the PA system, has a good-sized diaphragm and a nice pop filter. It can certainly produce good audio when used properly. So I hope that helps explain the problems. Training in the use of the PA equipment is down to the airline, who will usually do little or nothing, and not everyone is confident and blessed with a good speaking voice. I, for one, don't often have a problem. With my big booming voice, I don't actually need the PA system at all. Anyway, keep up the good work, chaps, and perhaps one day you'll get somewhere near our famous 50% accuracy rating. Best regards, Captain Nick.
Well, there we are. I think that's gents. I think that's us officially told off. It has to be said. Can I just say one of the funniest comments that came in the chat room here? Armando, you're a very naughty boy. It says in the Mad Dog, the FO has to come back and deliver each message personally to each passenger, with Richard Adams chipping in that has to be done on parchment scrolls, which I think is a little unfair. But yes, Nev, your thoughts on that analysis by the legendary Sir Captain of Nick?
This is a sock, and that's what the audio sounded like. No, I jest. I think Nick he's such a good man. He comes up with lots of information that I certainly didn't know, and I had no idea about the number of audio sources that was available to him, which I think he said was 16.
Yeah, some stupid number, yeah.
However, I would like to know who, and whilst I do concede that there are, mic techniques that need to be taught during the training and all the rest of it, I still think that the speakers in most aircraft that I have ever flown in are a bit ropey. But I also concede that the audio route to get to them is a bit complicated, and it's very difficult to monitor it as well. But it's a safety critical part of the journey. And we're always told about how we should be listening to the PAs, how we should be listening to the safety briefing if it's on a video, and that's all great. But could we just have some better quality, please?
Indeed, this is Armando's done it again, by the way, in the chat room here.
He's saying, he said now?
In the Mad Dog, every seat has a teletype printer receiving messages from the bridge. I mean, flight deck. Auntie Liz has quite rightly pointed out that you guys were Jeff and Dana to defend their ride, seeing as we are busy slagging off the Mad Dog. But I'm with you, Nev. Actually,
I'll tell you what, all the way through that feedback, the chat room was just full of fantastic banter.
Indeed.
I will say.
That's a word. Yeah, we'll go with that. Yes, right.
Yeah, Captain Nick has said ropey speakers, ropey ears.
How rude.
That was a low blow.
Anyway, should we move on before we get sued?
So that brings the commercial segment to a close. So coming up next, then, we've had a segment sent in to us from Pilot Pip. In this particular segment, Pip tells us about his busy flying schedule, along with some of the countries he's flown into in 2018. Pip also tells us about his most visited airport while flying with SafeJets, and it's coming up right now.
Plane safety from the flight deck with Pilot Pip.
Hi everyone, it's Pip here with another of my segments. Yes, I know you're probably getting sick to death of all these segments I keep sending in to Plane Talking UK. Well, here's another one, especially for the new year. So let me start off by wishing you all a very happy 2019. I hope your 2018 was pretty awesome. Mine wasn't too bad. And it's my 2018 that I want to talk about. I was going through my logbook the other day, just jotting down some stats and working out how many miles I'd flown, and thought maybe I might tell you about that. So, of course, 2018 was my first full year on the new aircraft, on the Embraer 505, aka the Phenom, aka the Lemon. And I've got to say, I do miss the Hawker still. After a year and a bit on, I'm missing the Hawker, I'm missing the destinations, I'm missing the extra legroom. The phennom's a little bit on the small side, but, well, still getting used to it. But it has been a very busy year, probably one of my busiest in the 11 that I've been at SafeJets. And it kind of looked like this. So between the 1st of January and the 31st of December 2018, I made 286 individual flights at SafeJets Europe. If you can hear any aircraft noise in the background, by the way, I'm just sitting up in an office at Stansted, so there's Ryanairs and whatnots taking off just a few hundred meters away from me, so you can probably hear that in the background. A little bit of ambience for you. So anyway, 286 flights, which totaled around about, I haven't got the exact figure in front of me, I'm afraid, totaled about 450 hours of flying time, which depends on your viewpoint. It's either quite a lot, and it's quite a lot for me, but if you're someone like a pilot at Ryanair or some other low-cost EasyJet, or even maybe Owl at Acme Pink, sorry Al, then you're probably laughing at that number, 450 odd hours. You're probably, or maybe even crying, as I say, it depends on your viewpoint. Your average airline guy is probably working double that, maybe even a little bit more, so to them it may seem like I'm working just part-time hours. Other guys like to fly a lot, but 450 hours is pretty respectable, actually. It's not being too busy, but enough to be respectable. But that's flying hours, block hours. If you have a look at my total duty hours over the year, the time I'm effectively on the job, so flying, doing other stuff on the ground, preparing for flights, closing down flights, then actually it's probably not that too dissimilar to a guy at Ryanair or any other airline, because for those guys they probably do 3 or 4 flights a day, maybe 5 flights, but they do have very quick turnarounds. They're typically maybe doing 30 minutes between each flight, whereas for me at SafeJets, just because of the nature of our business and the flexibility that we need to build into our flying schedule, our turnarounds and show times in the mornings tend to be much, much longer. So typically the shortest turnaround for a revenue flight, a flight with passengers on board, would be 90 minutes. We can sometimes reduce that down to an hour and 15, but typically it's 90 minutes. So if you think of doing 4 flights in a day with 90 minutes between each one of them, then that starts to rack up the duty hours quite a lot. So while the flying hours might be half of what an airline guy does, the duty hours are probably about the same. So it all comes out in the wash, as they say. So over 286 flights in 2018, I covered, according to my calculations, 126,341 miles as measured by Great Circle routes. So just over 250,000 miles flown for me, which isn't too bad for someone doing exclusively short haul. Back on the Hawker I was doing a bit of a mix of short and medium haul, but not on the Phenom. It's pretty well 100% short haul. I'm not going out to the Middle East like I used to. I don't really do too much into Africa anymore, and I certainly don't head out into Russia anymore either. My Russian visa, in fact, has expired now, so I don't go there. So typically most flights are around about 90 minutes, probably if I average them all out, 90-minute flight sectors. A lot of quite shorter ones, and a small smattering of longer flights over 3 hours. My longest flight in distance was 1,364 nautical miles, and that was from Kiruna, which is up in the north end of, I think it's Sweden, down to Bratislava in Central Europe, so a little under 1,500 miles for that. And then my shortest flight in terms of Great Circle distance was 12 miles. And in fact, I've got a couple of those from Biggin Hill to London City, and probably a few other transits around London, Northolt to Luton, something like that. So a couple of very, very short ones as well, and they tend to be quite good fun. And over those 286 flights, I managed to fly into 129 different airports, which is great. That's probably one of the most fun things about doing the type of flying that I do, is the huge variety of airports that we go to. Now, your typical guy at BA or maybe Captain Nick at I did it again. At Acme Red, they maybe fly to a fairly small handful of destinations, maybe a few dozen, maybe even less for a small airline. So for me to go to well over 129 different airports is quite good fun. It really keeps things fresh, something different every single day. Now, there's some airports that we do tend to go to quite a lot, and my number one most frequently visited airport last year was Paris Le Bourget. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I went there probably, several dozen times, 30, 40 times perhaps. And then London as a city is probably my most frequently visited city, because obviously London has 5 or 6 airports that we use. One or two that stand out from last year. Quite early on, I think it was back in February perhaps, I had a lovely day in Ouarzazate. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it's deep down in southern Morocco. A really fascinating place. Never been there before and haven't been there since, but a lovely flight over the Atlas Mountains, down deep into the desert and into this little oasis out in the desert. And we got to spend a whole day there, spent the night, then most of the day next day in this fabulous little town way out in the desert. A fascinating place. We had a lovely meal. We visited some of the souks and did a bit of bartering with the local traders. And it's a well-known, although you may not know it, you may well recognize it from a lot of movies. If ever there's a deserty scene needs to be filmed in a movie, then they quite often go to this town, Ouarzazate, because there's a big movie studios there with lots of sets. So they do a lot of filming there. So you may have seen it before. I think they filmed some scenes from Gladiator out there. And it's not just me, of course, being busy. I'm one of around about 600 pilots that we employ at SafeJets Europe. I can't remember the exact figure off the top of my head. It's around about 600. So, we're a sort of medium-sized airline. We operate just under 100 individual aircraft. And our 2019 as a company looked something like this. We flew 74,284 passengers. Compared to big airlines, our passenger numbers are very, very small. But the number of flights isn't too bad. I think we flew around about 60,000 flights, maybe a little bit less than that, 60,000 flights last year, which is a pretty decent number. I suspect it's more than someone like Acme Red, who, while they fly a lot of passengers, don't do quite so many flights. And we as a company, SafeJets Europe, we flew a grand total of miles, 14,007,660 miles last year. So that's a pretty big number, isn't it? And I quickly worked it out earlier. As a percentage of those 14 million miles, I flew about 0.8% of them. As a company, we flew to 729 different destinations last year, 729 cities, or 729 airports. And that's a huge number. That's really where we stand out in the aviation community. We just fly absolutely everywhere, all over the world, every continent, pretty much every country, every city. We tend to go there. Breaking that down a little more, just looking at the Phenom fleet particularly, of those, 60-odd thousand flights, we flew, I think, about 10,000 of them. So quite a high proportion of those flights are all down to us. We tend to work harder than everyone else. Of course, we've got the Phenom fleets. We've got the XL fleet, the Citation XL. That's I think they've got about 30 aircraft. Then we've got the Challenger 350s. We've got the Falcon 2000s. Then we're onto the long-range fleets, which is the Global 6000s and the Gulfstream 550s. And as a fleet, Paris Le Bourget was our most visited, 466 flights into Le Bourget. Farnborough was the second most popular with 368, according to the stats I've got here. And here's a good figure. Our dispatch reliability, so how many of those flights did we successfully dispatch without breaking down or any technical issues, was 99.4%. So nearly 100% of those flights we were on, we dispatched successfully for, which is a great number and far higher, interestingly, than they had figured on when they first introduced the fleet. They have some sort of figure in mind. Aircraft break down, some are more reliable than others, and they plan the flying schedule around the fact that a certain number of flights will go tech. And I don't know exactly what they planned on for the Phenom fleet, but it certainly wasn't 0.6% less than 100%. So we've done phenomenally well in that regard. So it's been a really great year. It's a very reliable aeroplane. Honestly, in the year that I've been flying it now, I can't really think of anything that's technically gone wrong. One or two very minor system failures that we've dealt with in the air, but it's a really very reliable aircraft. Anyway, I'm kind of running out of figures here. I hope 2019 is going to be just as interesting and just as challenging, and I'm hoping to visit some more new places. I'm certainly hoping to visit some nice sunny places over the coming months, maybe some Greek islands. One of my favourite places, Ibiza, Mallorca. Looking forward to the summer. I've had enough of the winter already. And I hope it's going to be a successful and exciting year for all of you as well. So that's where I'm going to bring it to an end. Wishing you all the very best and, of course, safe flying. Bye.
And his first segment of 2019. Well done, Pip. Thanks for that, as always. Always nice to hear where Pip's been going in and around Europe and stuff in his in the lemon.
Right, yeah, that's a word for that, yes, indeed.
So don't forget, Pip is over at the Plane Safety Podcast. He's just actually released a new episode of the Plane Safety Podcast, episode number 57, and it's, I'll tell you what, it's a good, because it's the part 3 of the How We Got Here thing. It's been quite interesting to hear just how Pip and Al got to where they are now.
Very cool.
So yeah,
worth a listen.
Worth a listen, definitely. So up next then, it's some military news. So if everyone's ready.
Yes.
Yeah,
why not?
Yes from Matt.
just throw it out there, Carlos. Why don't you blow me?
Okay.
I expected more preamble, but anyway, I'm ready now. Let's go.
So, kicking off this week's first news story, it is the guy who's going to do lots of things military for us with the news. It's Armando. So, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. The military news is kind of interesting. It's hard curating because there's no social media out there, and sometimes the news just doesn't pick up on some of the trends, the industry trends. So I'll do my best over the next couple months. But the first story is from BreakingDefense.com, and it is about the Air Force's KC-46 new tanker. So while the Air Force has accepted delivery of the first KC-46 today, Boeing could face a total of $4.5 billion in cost overruns and withheld payments on the initial $4.9 billion contract for 52 KC-46 tankers. So depending on what happens as the company tries to fix the plane's remote vision system. So how does that work, you might ask? Boeing has already spent more than $3 billion of its own money getting the KC-46 started. And the Air Force announced today, as it accepted the delivery of the first one, some 17 months late, that it may withhold up to $28 million per plane until Boeing fixes the crucial remote vision system. It's a setup of sensors and cameras which allows the boom operator to connect the tanker to the plane that needs gas. However, the Rockwell call-in system doesn't work well in certain light conditions. So the Air Force is saying that there are operational workarounds for the light conditions, but that's exactly what they are, just workarounds. The service believes it will take Boeing 3 to 4 years to fix the RVS. So a Tiger team, which is what we call sort of a continuous process improvement team, from Boeing and the Air Force worked on the RVS and developed 9 critical parameters. Those must be met or the Air Force reserves the right to withhold the $28 million per airplane. So in the meantime, Air Force officials say the plane offers capabilities such as casualty evacuation, rapid offload of fuel to virtually all U.S. combat aircraft using either a boom or a drogue system, which is more survivable than the current fleet and, most importantly, is not an antique. The average age of the KC-10 and KC-135 fleets is about 50 years, which is why the service accepted delivery of the first plane, which Boeing considers a huge milestone. In addition to the RVS, there is a need to redesign the boom on the KC-46 so it can refuel the venerable A-10 Warthog. When the contract was originally awarded, the Air Force used the internationally accepted standard of 1,400 pounds of pressure for the boom as it meets the refueling aircraft, but the A-10 only develops 650 pounds. Since this is, in effect, a new requirement, the Air Force will eat the cost of resigning the boom. So what is next? 4 KC-46s will be delivered to McConnell Air Force Base. That's in Missouri, I believe. And followed by 4 to Oklahoma's Altus Air Force Base. And this summer, the Air Force officials expect Boeing to hit a delivery rate of 3 to 4 aircraft each month. So there you go. Boeing is going to eat the costs of development for now and hopes that the Air Force continues its order of 179 airplanes.
Yeah, because these are based, aren't they, Armando, on the 767, these KC-46.
767, that's correct.
Yeah. Does the Osprey, Armando, is there a lot of air-to-air refueling go on with that particular
It does.
aircraft?
It actually uses a drogue system similar to most other helicopters and some of the Navy aircraft. So, and that was something unique. So a KC-135 has to be fitted with one or the other. Not every aircraft is fitted with a boom and a drogue. Some, the KC-46, well, yeah, it's delayed a little bit. It's a much more capable aircraft. They're new. They're rolling off the assembly line. The technology, this one system is not quite there yet. But overall, the airframe, like they said, I mean, the KC-135s are 707s essentially. So
Exactly. But worth a lot because them aircraft have lasted quite a long while, the 135s, and we still see them in the air over here in East Anglia as well, quite a bit. Yeah. So
they're still going strong.
Next story is on the defencenews.com website, and its headline is UK Defence Chief F-35 jets are ready for operations. So Britain has declared initial operating capability on its F-35B Lightning fighter fleet, an announcement made by Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson during the January the 10th visit to the aircraft's new base. Williamson also took the opportunity to confirm the successful culmination of a $540 million programme to upgrade the Royal Air Force's Eurofighter Typhoon fleet with Storm Shadow cruise missiles, the Meteor air-to-air missile and the Brimstone ground attack weapon. The incredible F-35 jets are ready for operations. A transformed Typhoon has the power to dominate the skies into the 2040s, and we continue to look even further into an ambitious future, the Defence Secretary said. The British have 9 of the short takeoff and vertical landing versions of the F-35 ready for overseas deployment, said Williamson. He was speaking inside a new maintenance hangar that's part of a $700 million investment the Ministry of Defence is making at RAF Marham here in the UK, the main base for the Lockheed Martin built fleets of jets. 16 F-35B aircraft have been delivered to the British and are currently based in the UK and the United States. The government ordered a further 17 fighters late last year for delivery between 2020 and 2022, and the British have said they will buy 48 jets to meet immediate requirements for a joint Royal Air Force, Royal Navy force, and have committed to buying a total of 138 aircraft, though officials have given only a vague timeline. The Royal Navy began flight trials of the aircraft from the deck of its new 65,000-ton aircraft carrier, HMS Queen Elizabeth, last year. Work has been underway for some time in the Ministry over whether part of the future orders for the Lightning II should include a batch of F-35A types for the Royal Air Force, with the F-35Bs being earmarked just for the Royal Navy service. The first tranche of 48 aircraft will be the F-35B, which will be jointly operated by the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy, capable of operating from both land and the Queen Elizabeth aircraft carriers. Decisions on subsequent tranches of the Lightning will be taken at the appropriate time, he said. Howard Wheeldon, a commentator on the defence aviation sector here, said the possible mix of F-35As and B variants was one of the items the government still needed to study to ensure a credible F-35 force. They need to set out a clear strategy, he said, as opposed to a mere definition of intent in respect to required capacity in numbers and requirement for both the A and B variants. How many UK-owned B variants do we really need for carrier strike? And we will see the US Marine Corps aircraft permanently based on UK carriers, he said. The US Marines are expected to fly their own F-35Bs from the deck of the British carrier in early deployments, in part because the Royal Navy will have insufficient numbers of its own aircraft until the numbers build up. And the story goes on, but it's nice to know that these are, going to be actively used now in operations to obviously ward off the Russians, I reckon.
Yeah, busy flirting with our borders.
Have you been up close and personal with one of these yet, Armando?
I have not. I don't have a lot of experience with fighter aircraft, actually. So I see them flying around. I've seen them both in the U.S. and the U.K. They're amazing when they're doing their demonstrations, but I have not yet seen one up close.
Well, perhaps we'll get a chance to see one at the air shows this year. So
because we're going to hopefully do RIAT, aren't we?
Yes, we are RIAT. Yes, yeah. So the last story here, Nev, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, it's on the UK defencejournal.org.uk, and it says that 656 Squadron, 4 Regiment Army Air Corps and their Apache helicopters are taking part in exercise Clockwork at Bardufoss in Norway, say the British Army. The Army says that the Apaches are flying alongside the Wildcat battlefield reconnaissance helicopters of the Commando Helicopter Force, learning how to operate together in some of the harshest weather conditions. Training in the Arctic builds on the Apaches' battle-winning abilities that have already been proved on combat operations and in the maritime and desert environments. A key role for 4 Regiment AAC is to maintain a force of Apaches on standby to provide an aviation strike capability to the Royal Marines of 3 Commando Brigade, the British military's extreme cold weather warfare specialists. The UK currently operates a modified version of the Apache longbow, the Apache AH-1, Westland-built 67 WAH-64 Apaches under license from Boeing, following a competition between the Eurocopter Tiger and the Apache for the British Army's new attack helicopter in 1995. Important deviations made by Augusta Westland from the US Apache variants include changing to more powerful Rolls-Royce engines and the addition of a folding blade assembly for use on naval ships. In 2016, the UK Ministry of Defence confirmed a US foreign military sale worth $2.3 billion for 50 AH-64Es to be built in Arizona. Leonardo Helicopters in the UK is to maintain the current fleet of Apaches until 2023 to 2024, with a long-term plan for Leonardo and other UK companies to do most of the work on the new fleet. The deal includes an initial support contract for maintenance of the new helicopters, along with spare parts and training simulators for UK pilots. The first UK helicopters are due off the US production line in early 2020 and will begin entering service with the British Army in 2022. That's a lot of work coming up for our folks here, which is good news indeed. And often this, we do a lot of work with the Norwegians and all sorts of things for cold weather operations there. So that's, good to hear that.
Yeah, we see a lot of the Apache around here, actually. Somebody's got one, haven't they, nearby?
Oh, RAF Watersham, yeah.
No. There's one that quite often comes to... I'm sure it's an Apache. Isn't that what comes and lands at Beccles quite a lot and then goes and flies?
No, that's the boys from Watersham.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like any of the guys from RAF Watersham watching. I'd just like to thank you for another great show this week on Monday over Beccles. It was nice to see you guys. I think they were chasing each other. There's 2 Apache AH-64s doing. It looked like they were doing burnouts in the sky. Really, it's definitely having fun. But do you get to see many of these, Armando, where you are?
Yeah, we work closely with them. Especially back in the United States. But I will say the Norwegians are amazing to work with. They're an incredible military, and they're incredibly friendly, and they're very good at what they do. And I've been up to Norway and on some of these exercises, well north of the Arctic Circle, and I'm glad to see that the Apaches are going up there, because it's not just about how to fly in those conditions, right? Almost every aircraft has cold weather procedures, but it's about the ground crews. It's about how to just get to the aircraft if you need to get to the aircraft quickly. In the case of Americans, you got a bunch of guys from, like in the article, from Arizona and Florida that are trying to drive on ice in northern Norway just to get out to the airplane. So the whole exercise of going up to northern Norway to train is incredibly important, and I'm glad to see that's happening with the Apaches.
Excellent. So that's where we bring some military news to a close. So, we're going to start to wrap things up, I suppose, guys, aren't we? But any more last-minute news bits and pieces from anyone at all for the show this week?
No, I want to lie down in a darkened room after this week. Thank you very much. It's the stress levels have been through the roof throughout most of today's show.
Oh, and a big thanks to Myla for the photo that we've got behind us here tonight on the show. For those of you, there we go.
It's her baby.
There, I think she sits. Hold on, where are we?
You're good at this, Carlos. Really good.
Hold on. No.
What are you doing?
There.
This works really well on a audio-based podcast. Thanks for that, Carlos. Great.
And for those of you who do listen to the show in audio version, if you want to see what craziness goes on in the studio, do take yourselves over to YouTube.
Seriously, just
to see the show broadcast with visuals.
It seems a lot more seamless if you listen to the audio version. Yeah. Nothing ever seems to go wrong.
It's the 3 days of editing Matt does after each show.
Quite.
Yes. So that is where we're going to start to wrap up episode number 252 of the show then. And don't forget to send us your pictures to the email address podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. And you can have your picture on the wall behind me and Matt here on the wonderful green screen we now have. So send your pictures in there. And don't forget to check out the website. Matt has been busy.
It's not finished yet. Don't get started.
But it looks nice.
It's getting there. Yeah.
It looks nice, but Matt has been playing. I've got
a style that I'm happy with, so I shall build on that. So
But no, thanks for sorting that out, Matt. It's very good.
Thank me when it's done.
And also a big thanks to Matt as well, because Matt's been busy doing my own website as well for my disco stuff. So thanks to you, Matt, for that, because that looks awesome as well. Yeah. So good on you. So take yourselves over to allthews.plaintalkinguk.com if you want to have a look at the new website. Matt's showing it on the screen there for those of you watching in YouTube world. And don't forget to send your feedback into the show, because we'd love to hear from all you guys and girls as to what you've been doing in the worlds of aviation. Nev, any exciting plans for you, apart from obviously our big PTUK annual board meeting tomorrow?
Oh, yes. I'm looking forward to that, I can tell you. I'm particularly looking forward to a meal in the evening, actually.
Yeah, me too, yeah. I love a curry. I thought
it was KFC we're having.
No.
Sorry.
Quiet. How dare you?
No, we're not going to the curry place now due to operational circumstances. But don't worry, we've got somewhere lined up just as nice.
Okay, all right then.
So Armando, what's on the agenda for you?
Busy for you, by the
You're
sound
busy.
of it.
Actually, not a whole lot. I'll be here in southern Germany working on this project for the next couple months. It's kind of nice being away, and the skiing is beautiful, and the city is beautiful, and the food is great. It'll make me have to run a little bit further with all the schnitzel and the sauerkraut and everything. So.
Break it up
and
the
German beer.
Yeah.
Is the beer good over there? Is it good beer?
Oh my gosh, it's delicious. I haven't gone wrong. Any place you walk into, you can't go wrong just ordering any beer.
Suddenly I want to go out and join Armando for a bit of one weekend. We should have a weekend pop over.
I was going to say have the PTK board meeting in Germany. Yeah, just for a change.
Let's do that. Yeah. You up for that, Nev? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll do it.
You go on.
Happy with that.
Yeah, jump on a quick BA flight somewhere. Yeah, absolutely.
So what about you, Matt? Busy week next week?
Do you know
Coaching around the world?
My details were given to me, and I actually forgot to look at them. So I could be going anywhere this week. I literally have no idea.
Oh, a nice little London then for you.
Oh.
Well, I've just realised I'm going to Edinburgh on
Scotland.
Tuesday of
Oh,
next
get
week,
you. Yeah.
which will be a bit chilly, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take
May I
my
recommend
warm
your
coat
outside coat for that one? Yeah.
No. Yes, I'm going up on Tuesday, coming back on Wednesday.
What's
So
the
I'll be-
chosen carriage, Nev?
Oh, it'll be a British Airways
There's a
A320 or A319, I would imagine. It used to be a 767 in the old days, but of course that's all finished now. So it'll be
Armando,
one of those.
Armando, what's the weather like at the moment where you are? I mean, you were saying you were skiing and stuff, so I presume there's a bit of snow on the ground.
Yeah, there's a little bit of snow. It's just above freezing, but generally the days are pretty nice.
Yeah.
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 Typical,
Fresh but nice
weather.
Yeah.
He can ski. I mean, that's just a achievement in itself.
Is there
Let's be
anything?
here.
That's only slightly. I mean, it's all very. I'm delighted to have him as part of our regular team now. But I'm beginning to feel a little inadequate as a human being. I mean, he does cute things like take his now wife to Paris to sort of propose. I mean, it's just like that. Us normals have no hope, do we? Really?
I don't even have a quippy comeback to that.
Right, no, fair enough. Anyway, it's time to wrap up.
And apparently,
boys.
according to the BBC, it's now snowing in Leeds.
Right, okay.
So there we go. You heard it here first.
Thanks for that.
So that is where we are going to bring episode number 252 to a close. A huge thanks to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room tonight for the show. Big thanks to all you guys. And not forgetting as well, everyone who downloads the show as an audio version through all the wonderful podcasty type downloady web app things in the world. So thanks to everyone who does that.
You're
And
right
don't
there,
forget,
Carlos.
and don't forget, if you do download the show through iTunes, don't quite know why you would. It's an Apple-related thing.
Oi,
But if
there's
you
nothing
do,
wrong.
please leave us a little bit of feedback.
Sort
a bit
him
of
out, Nev,
staff
will you?
feedback on there. We'd appreciate that. Helps to
He's going to have a
promote
shock
the show.
tomorrow. There is every single
Everything
thing
is
in this
Apple,
house
where
is Apple.
Oh, God.
It's going to be a real nightmare for you tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Good.
Gemma's got an iPhone.
Right. Okay,
So,
good.
yeah.
I'm glad we had this little chat.
So that's it then, guys and girls. Join us again next Friday for another fun-packed show. And, from me, Carlos here, in the PTUK studio, have a safe and well weekend and enjoy yourselves in whatever you do. And take care and goodbye.
And from me here, it is everybody. It is time to say goodbye. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.